amazing episode of Building a Better South Africa Together, brought to you by Anglo American and Why. Young people in South Africa are so incredibly inspiring because they've decided to take ownership of their futures. They are forging a new path to create a better South Africa. They are the ones that are driving youth-led innovation in the country. Now, another thing outside of that is that they're not just creating opportunities for themselves, but they really are working incredibly hard to create opportunities for their communities and for the people that reside there. One such person is the guest we have on the show today, who is someone who has been creating a difference in the lives and communities in Limpopo. Her name is Sharon Rapetswa. Hello, Sharon. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nia.
We're so happy to have you here. How are you? You look gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
Looking successful, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about you a little bit. You are regarded as a social entrepreneur. Can you break that down for us a little bit? What exactly is a social entrepreneur, and why is it so important for you to give back to your community?
I would say, in my own definition, a sole entrepreneur is somebody who applies the basic entrepreneurship elements to a social kind of business for social purposes, like, fighting poverty with profits, rather than, pure for-profit organizations.
Yeah.
So that's what I would define social entrepreneurship as. And for me, having been going into that route was just having to find, after so many things that I've started, I came to realize that charity is just not the answer to, like a sustainable social environment within rural communities specifically.
Yeah.
So hence, I actually took the social entrepreneurship route, seeing that I studied business and taking that into account and my love for social development and empowering of others, then I went into social entrepreneurship with a bang.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's so incredibly selfless, and I think because it's easy to just go for the profits, right? But if you're someone that really cares about the people in your community, you try to view the business in a different way, and that's what you have done, which is absolutely inspiring. But you've also kind of chosen an interesting path, soap. Why soap? How did you come to this incredible idea? Yeah.
Soap became an opportunity rather than a choice. So basically, I went into soap because of during my time at Gibbs, while I was studying, through a green scholarship by JP Morgan, we were basically trying to innovate secular businesses. And we happened to find some few challenges that some companies were actually facing in an environmental setup. And me coming from a background of being a soap maker, I thought soap is something that I wanted to look at.
Yeah.
And I went and did some research about what happened to the waste that is generated by soap factories, hotels, like wherever soap has a movement. And I found
Which is everywhere.
Yes. And when I looked at public health stats as well, and the impact that soap has on people's lives, and how many people actually end up not being even able to afford such commodities such as soap, which are very, very important, I then wanted to make a difference and to go and research and find who on the ground is actually trying to get into the space of, transforming this whole high access to hygiene for everyone thing. So I went and I found a couple of key players globally via the internet, and I started interacting with them, interviewing them. Why did they choose the solutions they're using, the technologies they're using? And I happened to have some synergy with them as we're busy engaging, because they loved what I was doing with women in rural communities and running social businesses as well. And they were like, okay, let's actually start working together. What can we do? And I'm like, no, you can come to South Africa and we can see what we can do. I have a lot of women. I'm from a rural area in Limpopo province. I would like to take this home with me because I'm very passionate about making sure the people that can work within 300 meters of where they actually live in their homes and not having to migrate to cities. And it happened that they were like, okay, let's do it. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur with the right skill sets, we can actually come to South Africa and we can do this. So that's how I then met up with all the social impact investors that are part of my model. And we grew up until such time that locally we started getting interest from other key players in the soap industry, in the soap manufacturing industry. And through that, we established what we have today as Triple Shine Foundation.
Wow.
And employing rural women who are disadvantaged background, single mothers. Some are just people that were, didn't have access to education at an early stage in their lives. But then they got to have an opportunity to finally have employment where they live. And they are making an impact at fair wage policy. So we make sure that they do not get anything lesser, because most of them were farm workers who hardly got nothing or close to nothing, really, but were just happy that at some time during harvest time they would go with their kids and go work in the farms. So, but then when this opportunity came up, we are actually coming to industrialize opportunities at rural areas, which is something that you never really hear of on a daily basis. And a lot of people thought that's weird. I mean, why don't you take this thing to a city?
Yeah.
Be in an industrial environment, manufacturing, but we took it to rural areas for those women, for those kids, and for the people as well.
Exactly.
And it's because it's all about a story at the end of the day. Like, whenever you invest in a woman, you tend to also invest in the family, because there's research that actually has proven through microfinance institutions globally that for every dollar given to a woman, 80% of it goes back to the community.
Yes.
For economic empowerment of communities and for the children. So with that, we decided to be intentional about empowering women, which is why our model is basically we put a voice out there to say we are for those women in the rural areas. We are for those disadvantaged women who probably wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to have a workplace environment that is industrial, a factory setup like, but exactly where they live, next to their children and not having to go anywhere far. So that's what we really became about. And with that being our intention from a social perspective, now came in the sustainability part. Like, you have to be sustainable. And like I was saying, charity is not necessarily the answer, because charity is temporary, it's for surviving. We need to thrive, and to be able to build organizations that thrive and that impact people's lives, we need to make sure that we start and establish businesses that are going to last, that makes sense to the value chain of whatever is happening globally and not just locally. So hence we went into the model of empowering women through business.
Yeah.
So we see ourselves as a business. We operate as a business. Although we are a non-profitable business, the whole aim is move the profits back towards the social empowerment, move the profits back to paying the salaries of the people, move the profits back to establishing parks in those communities, empower the young people surrounding those areas. Let there not be just idleness. So that's what our model is about. And we do have sales, for example, in our organization, although in fashion, you would think nonprofit organizations don't have to do natural business, but that's not the case with social enterprises. We basically can make profits, but those profits are not for us to go and buy Mercedes-Benzes and BMWs and go on holidays, but they are literally for making sure we give back. Now, we have these women who, when we started, we're just thinking, okay, it's just another job, maybe it's another charity that's coming to help, but it will probably disappear, but we didn't do that.
Yeah.
So in 2020, when we opened our doors, we had about 6 women, and half of them young, half of them a bit older than 45 to 50. And when we started training them on using the technology and everything else, they started getting, some confidence. We actually have jobs where we can actually touch machinery and be the ones who supervise our daily work, all of those type of things. So it just came to our attention that these women are what we are driving more than anything else. And when we make the soap and now have to sell it, we had challenges whereby, we wanted to sell the soap mostly to the less impoverished communities because, we're really selling them at a cost of nothing. And we can't really go the shelf routes and all of those things per se because of the nature of how we operate, where we get the raw materials from and all of those things. So we basically targeting non-profit organizations to invest back. And these women, basically, their story is just to say, we need sustainable jobs for them. So our model is such that we basically invest into the community by making sure whatever profits come from the wholesaling of the soap to all these organizations that are usually global, international, giving soap for disaster relief purposes, taking this soap outside the country. But then that comes back to a small organization based in a rural area in South Africa, but acting local but thinking global.
Absolutely,
So we have those companies investing in this whole model. And well, it worked out quite well.
Yeah.
And we had even more traction from other manufacturers locally who said, okay, can we also be a part of this thing? What is this thing?
Yeah.
So due to the fact that we have relationships with different organizations globally and having our networks work for us, we are able to take skill from other countries through our investors, through the people that are supporting our program to speak for us on the global scale while we speak for ourselves locally.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like obviously a lot of work has gone into this enterprise. A lot of work, research has gone into, doing the work that you do, which says to me that it must have taken a couple of years. It took a little bit of time. It took getting to know people, networking as well, doing more research. But all of this also didn't come just by the by, out of the blue. Because from what I understand, you were raised on a farm, right? Earlier on, you mentioned the moms and dads that would take their kids with them to the farm. How did you then kind of build this entrepreneurial skill? Where does that come from? Did you study? Where did you study? How did you go about learning all of this stuff and this information that you know of now?
Interestingly, I grew up in a rural area in a farm town in Endermark, and but my mom basically comes from Wegdry, where my grandfather used to have a farm. And all Christmas holidays were always spent at the grandmother's house, like, we used to. And while growing up, I saw that my grandfather hires a lot of people for his farm. And each season, people come in, they get jobs, and they're able to feed their families and stuff. So I was just growing up in that environment. And when it came to, going back to my mother's house, that's where I would see these women with their children always leaving. And my mom and dad used to also have small businesses on the side. They were both educators, but because educators have a lot of time during school holidays and weekends, they would always have something to sell over the weekend. And they would go to town, buy some stuff, and then we would be selling it at our houses. So I started learning about business from that way.
Age also, it sounds
Exactly.
that way. That is amazing, and that's I think so fitting and so beautiful that you learned how to be an entrepreneur from a young age and from your parents as well. I think that's so incredibly inspiring. Listening to you speak, to me it sounds like you are very, very passionate about the circular economy, right?
Yes.
Why is it so important for you to kind of take the skills that you have and put it back into training the next generation of entrepreneurs?
I would say it's always important, especially in the area of having a passion for the social impact side, to always look forward to a better world after we all live this earth. So secular business I would say it's the right time for it now. It should have probably not been the right time for it. The right time was probably 20 years ago or 100 years ago even. But for me, secular business is the key, especially in less impoverished areas. Seeing that there is a lot of problems with sanitation in rural areas and townships, such that if we engage in secular business, it will actually, help us achieve SGD 6, that's Sustainable Development Goal 6, which is for, responsible consumption as well as responsible production. If you take the two together, put it together, and you find that it can empower people in rural areas and township, because that lack of sanitation is now, kind of kicking us because of the climate change and all of those things. And you find that over the years, people had gotten used to littering. People have gotten used to pollution as a lifestyle. So if you now have to fight, pollution, you need to do it in a way that it basically is impacted through culture. And the only way to affect culture is to go back to that circularity model where we used to basically go and refill things, where you basically went and reused certain things and saved certain things for later. But the problem in rural areas and township is always the littering, because there's absolutely almost no government services going to them to fetch, the garbage every week or so. So they have to ban the stuff. And if you think about it, how many things do you buy that come in packaging, and how much of it do you throw away?
Exactly.
So imagine people in rural areas who actually have to throw it away in their own yards, and it ends up in their water streams, or it ends up, affecting the soil. And later on, we start asking ourselves questions. What happened to certain beetles we used to see? What happened to, it's all because now the soil has a different culture than it used to have, because of all the waste that goes into it.
Sure.
So secular business basically now becomes what we need to think about, from a production perspective, also from a consumption perspective. And it has to be done by both the industry as well as the households. And we cannot just leave it to improved forms of packaging only, but lifestyle also needs to be incorporated within that, because that's what's affecting our world at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So secular business is basically what we drive because of looking forward. It's still early days in which a lot of business is not necessarily in a secular business economy environment. But they are trying to get into those spaces, but they have to look for innovations. They have to look for innovators. And who best can do it if not somebody who basically is from that kind of environment, who can test those, who can develop them, innovate them over time, because it's not going to happen overnight. Because building culture is just something that's a lifetime.
Yeah.
But we can start somewhere, and which is why I would say I just activated it. I'm just an activator who came into the mix, and like, with whatever years of my life that I'm going to be around here, let me make it count for something. It's just a tipping point type of business model where as long as I start, other people will follow. Other people will follow.
I love that. Please take that away. As long as you start, because sometimes that's all you have to do, right?
Yeah.
It's just to start. So I was going to mention this in my intro, but I decided to leave the best for last. You are an award winner. Yes, you are. You won the Michelle Obama's Women Leader Award, right?
Yeah.
How does that feel to be recognized in that way?
Wow. It felt great. At the same time, I used it as my stepping stone.
Yes.
And I didn't even feel like it was a win. I just felt like it's something that just has to happen.
Yeah.
I just had to. I just had to win.
Yeah.
Because, there's just a lot of things that we need to do in this earth. And when I basically raked in that, it was the first one, in fact, that introduced me to this whole thing of, you know what, Sharon, go out there and make things happen.
Exactly.
And when you make things happen, whatever you do in your little corner, somehow the dots connect, and it's just gonna happen.
Exactly.
It's just gonna happen. So I'm a person of ideas. So whenever I'm thinking of issues in the social, in the social environment, in communities where I live, I always think of who best can do it at the best possible, budget, and with whatever time is available, and the resources, the people that are there. So when I applied for these awards, I was just trying to, get my foot into it, to say, let me start somewhere. And if somebody else resonates with that difference, it will come back.
Absolutely.
So that's what I threw out there, and that's why these awards just came by.
Yeah.
And it led on to more awards even afterwards, where I started now going for, other trainings, accelerators, even leadership training as well, understanding leadership as well, because I didn't think of myself as a leader. Maybe because I didn't understand the definition at the time. But I started realizing as time goes, it's just somebody who just takes the lead. Someone who just says, can I just raise my hand to be that person to just start? Even if it means I'm not the only person who's going to end up, in this pie.
Yeah.
Let me be the first one to start. Other people will follow. I will find others on the way, and we will make a difference together. So that's basically how it's all about. And when people resonate with that change, when they are passionate about it, you tend to always fall into those numbers of, oh yeah, so those people are here and they're doing great things on the ground. And when these things find you, it's way better. And I use them to make sure that we continue to have more Sharons, continue to have more people doing social impact work, because there are things that we start sometimes. I start certain things sometimes. I'm like, if I wake up tomorrow and I find that somebody else is also doing what I'm doing and does it better, I would be relieved. Because it's always good that whatever I'm seeing can actually also make a difference with others. Can others also see it?
Exactly.
And do it as well.
Exactly.
So awards should just be, things that find you, rather doing great things, not necessarily doing what you're doing for awards, but let them just find you while you doing the best you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Sharon, there might be, some young people watching this web series right now thinking to themselves, well, Sharon, I do want to make a change in my community. I do want to become a social entrepreneur, but it's so difficult. We've got high unemployment rates. The economy is not doing very well. It's incredibly stagnant. Are there any tips that you can share with those young people on how to go about getting involved as a social entrepreneur and some of the important things that they need to remember?
Alrighty. I would say the key secret is in collaboration and finding people who you can connect with, that you'll be able to accelerate what they're doing. You don't have to start something new. Sometimes it's just a matter of making sure that you can go and take something that is far from where you are and bring it closer. So you don't necessarily have to feel like, oh, it means I'm gonna, some people think ideas need to always be original by yourself, but sometimes, just go find that idea and be like, what if this thing can come to South Africa? Or what if this thing can move from Cape Town and come to Limpopo? So sometimes you just have to, piggyback on whatever is there, but bringing it closer because it's far. So you don't necessarily always have to just start your own thing
or start from scratch.
It's not about that. So innovation does not only come out of, being original in what you're doing, but also being original where you are, but not necessarily being the first one to have started it, but being the first one to have brought it where you are.
Absolutely.
So not being afraid to test other people's ideas and expand on them, but through collaboration, through communication with those people, reach out to them. I mean, all it took for me was an email to Ecoso Bank in the US. And a couple of key players on the ground. And today, they have moved from where they are right now to South Africa. They have established themselves in South Africa. But what did it take? It was just an email and saying, guys, you're doing great work globally. So how can we actually now help ourselves for the setup of Africa? I'm in South Africa. What can we do? Where can we start? And in that way, I was able to pull in somebody who is sitting somewhere globally to come to the country and work with us, on our terms, in our way, not even trying to change anyhow, we do business. And also, number 2, I would say networking is also key. So you need to network for success, because sometimes you don't necessarily have to have money. You just have to have the right people who have money on one side and the idea on the other, and being the person who's gonna be the leader in bringing the two together. Because sometimes we have the money and we have the idea, but all we needed is somebody who can come connect those dots. And it takes you to say, hello, I don't have this where I am, but I see that idea over there can come over here if you also bring that resource to me as well. So I'll be that person, I'll take the lead, and I'll be able to implement this thing in a way that will actually move things forward. So
Exactly.
networking
Yeah.
is very key. And then another tip that I would also give is to always start where you are. You don't always have to, try and go
Preach,
somewhere
Sharon.
else. And
Exactly.
So start where you are and work with what you have. So resources, it's you have your community, you have the people that are there. Just start. Somebody else might just come and donate some things to you. It can start with charity, although I wouldn't really encourage charity as an answer, but always try to make sure we build sustainable things, because one thing that has that has impacted a lot of failures in business is always thinking that you need to start things that are free for everyone, and if they are not free, nobody's gonna afford it. Sometimes it's us just trying to think that people don't afford things, whereas it's just that they just don't have the opportunity or the access. And given the access, there will be a way. And try not to do everything for free, but try and make sure that you do pull the resources towards you so that this is sustainable, because sustainability will not come if you're going to think that everything else will be done for free.
Exactly.
So you just need to make sure that whatever idea I'm putting down, you have to plan forward. You need to, put it in a business canvas model and then put your mind to the idea, like design, think it. Like, you have to design, think things so that you are able to implement them with the right partners involved, with the right resources involved, and making sure that whatever impact you're gonna get out of it is well measured. Because you cannot control what you can't measure.
Yes.
At the end of the day. So bringing in the relevant partners by thinking through your idea to say, okay, I just have me and a couple of young people who are unemployed in the community, but we have issues in the community. For example, we have children that don't have anywhere to play.
Yes.
But we have places where people drink, places where people go to church. So what can we do, for example, for kids? So you find that there are other ideas online. Innovation is everywhere now. There are platforms that can help you even raise the funding. You can crowdsource it all on the internet without you having a cent. You can even go and open a page where people basically come and see the kind of things you want to do and start helping you out, and try and monetize things. Try and have a place where you're going to be able to feed the model with some kind of profit that will fight that problem. Because if you do not have any source of income or revenue generation, you will end up being depleted at some point. Even people who give donations at some point don't want to be giving you donations anymore.
Yes.
So you need to always think through. As a start, you will have people helping you, but it shouldn't be your lifeline. So you should always find opportunities to monetize it little by little, because it's the only way that this will be sustainable. It's the only way that even one day when you plug yourself out of it, other people are able to take it and move it forward.
Exactly.
Yes. So those kind of things have to be incorporated in your idea at status, and get other people on board.
Yeah.
Do not be alone and think, I have to be a hero and try and wear that cape on.
It's too much pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And I think a lot of young people think that way. They think, do you know what? If I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do it by myself and see where that goes.
Yeah.
But you are kind of emphasizing the importance of collaboration, the importance of networking, and just the importance of realizing that we don't have to do this by ourselves. We don't have to go through this journey by ourselves, right?
Exactly.
I love that, Sharon. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Righty.
Alrighty, well, there you have it. I hope that you had your notebook out, and I hope that you were taking notes. I know that I was taking some mental notes as well. Sharon's got such an incredibly inspiring story. Now, I think that becoming a social entrepreneur is something that is amazing, not just for you, but also for your community. So I hope that that's something that you're going to be taking with you as you go forward. Another interesting episode down, but we've got more coming up in the next episode. So be sure to keep it locked right here. We'll see you again next time. Bye.